So, Hundreds of Beavers is a slapstick, zany comedy film from director Mike Cheswick. I believe I'm saying that. Yeah, Mike Cheswick, that's right. And this is basically, Hundreds of Beavers is and I know like a lot of people have used this like term to refer to other films, but this really is, and I say this with like a genuine nature, and I want to try to stress this as much as I can. Hundreds of Beavers is a live action Looney Tunes bit made into a feature film. And what I love so much about this film is that it tries to embody like the spirit of a Looney Tunes bit, but on a much smaller budget. So it's the strangest type of film, and it's one of those things where it's like, where if you describe the premise, you're just like, okay, this just sounds like a Looney Tunes bit that would only last like 6 minutes. Like, how could this film possibly go on for 108 minutes? But believe me, it makes it work. It does the impossible. It takes what could have been a 6-minute Looney Tunes short film and makes it work within the premise. Within its premise for like 108 minutes. So the whole premise is that you have you have the central protagonist here, Jean Kayak, played by Ryland Brixton Cole Tews, who has basically like, he lived the life of like being drunk, and then at one point in his life he just finds himself alone in the wilderness without money or food or shelter. So he's got to find a way to survive, so he's got to try to trap wildlife. So this leads to a lot of funny hunting gags. And when I say he has to hunt animals, all the animals in this film are either played by puppets, and that's mostly the fish. But for the most part, all the animals are played by these costumed characters who look less like animals and more like they're animal mascots for a college football team who are coming onto the field. But that just kind of adds to the charm of this film, because like it's meant to take place in like this snowy setting, which is obviously like green screen from like the way that it's shot and everything. But it's shot in like black and white, and it has this kind of like almost it pretty much embraces like this aesthetic, but like the silent movie slapstick aesthetic, where there's barely any dialogue, and most of the dialogue is just like people going like that type of film. And it makes it work for how it just keeps, finding fun stuff for this character of Jean to do as he struggles to survive in the wilderness. So the film starts off with a lot of bits where he's trying to trap rabbits and beavers, and it's just like trying and failing, and sometimes he wins and sometimes he doesn't. And at least all these funny bits where like icicles will come down from the trees, and they're almost like homing icicles, and he'll just randomly fall into parts of the snow, and animals will just trip over themselves, and they'll have these bizarre nonsense conversations, and it just proceeds along with just these fantastic bits of slapstick. Now there is a bigger premise here. So once like John starts trapping more beavers and getting their pelts, he brings them to a fur trapper, or like not even like a fur trapper, like a fur trader, and he becomes smitten with the merchant's wife. And the wife is clearly into him, and he kind of fancies her. But the only way to attain her hand in marriage is if he can bring the merchant hundreds upon hundreds of beaver pelts. Because like they establish like the dynamic fairly well here, where like if he brings back some beaver pelts, like if you bring back like 2, you'll get like like a knife or something. If you bring back 3, you'll get like you'll get some you'll get like a gun, you'll get some extra traps and stuff like that. So it's kind of him working his way up, almost kind of like a video game. And then when he gets to the point where he realizes, oh, I gotta trap hundreds of beavers, well, I'm going to have to go into the biggest beaver den that I can find and kill as many beavers as I can. And so he finds that the beavers are building this big dam, and he goes inside there. And of course, this whole film operates by cartoon logic. So when he goes into the dam, like it's not just any dam. Like it's this huge stronghold where they have a science laboratory, and they're building rockets, and they have like all this machinery for cutting up wood and stuff like that. And it's just John going on this massacre of all these beavers in the most ridiculous way possible. Like he decapitates them, he traps them in like these slingshots that like pierce them through the chest, and it's kept like the best way to describe the film is that like it's it does have a little bit of like of gore, but it's like cartoonish gore, where it's like if you're gonna show blood and guts, like the way that they look in the film, like they're almost kind of like felt guts, like they're like they were stitched together, almost kind of like make it almost kind of look like cute. So it's trying to be like Looney Tunes, but like a much darker and absurdist version of Looney Tunes, where like there can be more violence and like decapitation and like animals getting chopped in half. But in a, like kind of like a silly kind of independent film type way, where they're just making the best with what they have here. And it's surprising just how many bangers they get out of these gags of all of this slapstick zaniness. And you would think like, okay, it's just this guy going around killing beavers. Like that seems like it'd be fun for like the first half hour, maybe an hour, but not quite. But it feels like 100 minutes. You're kind of pushing it there. Trust me, it does not. It only continues to play up the absurdity. Like, and I think one of the ways that this film prevents itself from being stale is that it switches it up now and then. Like it makes some bold choices, like not to reveal the title of the film until it gets to that moment where the merchant says, "I need hundreds of beavers," and then the title comes up, and then the credits for the characters come up. I love how there's also like a running bit where they switch up the credits halfway through when like there's a deceiver. Like there's one character who's just a beaver in disguise the whole time, and they switch up the credits for it. I love how they dip into like a silent film where like when like characters will talk a nonsense, but sometimes they will get title cards. And then just the absurdity, like the over the top nature with the beavers, how they have a rocket ship, how their dam looks like this giant castle, how the beavers like formed together like Voltron at one point to make like a giant beaver mecha. It finds all the fun stuff that you could do with this premise, and it makes it work. Like there's animated sequences, like there's obvious screen sequences, there's a musical sequence in the beginning, like there's dark comedy with like killing and getting drunk, and like there's like weird flirtation going on between Jean and like the merchant's daughter, and just everything about this was just so much fun, and it's shocking how many great laughs this film can get out of such a small budget. Like the budget for this film, from what I've come to learn, it's $150,000. That was it. And it's like, this is a great testament to like a film with great ideas will come about. And it feels like you don't need the biggest budget to make a fun idea work. Because it feels like, you know, if this went to a big studio, like they would embrace like trying to make the beavers look more realistic or trying to put more effort into the kills. And here, with embracing like the black and white staging and the green screen and all the beavers with like the giant like, you know, heads that look like they're going to come onto a football field, all of it just has this adorable charm to it where, you know, like you admire just the staging alone, but then the fact that they get so many great slapstick bits out of it is just such a testament to how great this film was. I was surprised how much I enjoyed this film for mostly being just like a series of zany Looney Tunes gags. And it's going to be one of those types of films like Mad Max Fury Road where people complain that, well, it's just one thing, like it's just like, you know, it's just one chase, or it's just a series of gags, or, you know, it's just this one type of film that it's trying to be here. Which on its surface, yes, it's true. The whole premise is just one guy trying to murder hundreds of beavers. It's true to the title. But there's a lot more going on in terms of like the staging and the gags and all the effort that goes in to making all these, you know, basically silent bits of comedy work so well that I just adored the film. So yeah, Hundreds of Beavers, just it was just such a delightful surprise. Like I found myself laughing at this film way more than I expected to for this charming little film about killing beavers.